Sleep is a strange concept, and scientists don't fully understand why we need it. It is said that it's linked to survival, but it just seems so unnatural to be unconscious for many hours at a time. But have you ever wondered what it would be like if we didn't sleep? What would be the consequences to our brain, our mind, our state of being? What would we do with the extra time that we had in our hands? Well, that's where the Russian sleep experiment comes in, where they actually tested this, and the result of this experiment was tragic and horrifying. But first, I'd like to shout out a few people. I'd like to thank British Bumblebee, Scuffk, J-Vlogs, Spike Not Spike, Mimi, Mochi, and last but not least, the one who actually recommended me this video, Seriousness TV. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the video. So what is this Russian sleep experiment? It all begins with 5 subjects.
You have been accepted to take part in the sleep experiment.
According to the legend, this experiment took place in 1947 at a Soviet test facility, and the Soviets wanted to use this experiment as an attempt to have a secret weapon. The people that they used for this experiment were none other than prisoners. They were falsely promised to be let go after they completed this experiment in 30 days. The prisoners agreed, and they all went into a gas chamber. The point of this experiment was to try and keep these test subjects awake for 30 days. They released this gas into the chamber that would help them stay awake for this duration of time. In the first 5 days, everything seemed normal. The test subjects were awake, they were acting as normal human beings, interacting with each other, and just being normal. But on the 9th day, one test subject began to scream. He was screaming for hours upon hours until he tore his own vocal cords, making himself mute. After that happened, someone else started to yell, but the 5 prisoners did not allow any of the researchers to come in. The men in this gas chamber decided to cover up the windows with their own feces so that they don't allow the researchers to look inside. After a few days, they still weren't able to look inside, so they decided to do an intercom test to see if they were even still alive. Shortly after, they got a response from one of the prisoners. On the 15th day, however, the researchers decided to turn off the gas. To their surprise, the subjects did not want the gas to be turned off. They expressed their fear in falling asleep, and they did not want to. Once one of the researchers decided to look inside, there was a horrific scene waiting for him. There were only 4 remaining subjects still alive, one of which was severely mutilated. Skin and muscles were torn off, and the researcher noticed that they were practicing self-cannibalism. It was such a horrific and violent scene that he did not want to see. The subjects begged the man to leave and begged him to turn the gas on again. They were forced to leave the chamber, but they were very adamant in not leaving and continuing on with the experiment. They did not want to fall asleep. They showed an immense amount of strength. They were able to stay alive despite any of the lethal injuries that they had experienced. They were so desperate to stay awake. Unfortunately for them, one of them actually fell asleep and instantly died. After the remaining 3 subjects were treated, they were sent back into the chamber. The military commander ordered 3 of the researchers to stay in the chamber with the remaining subjects. They said no. They were very adamant in not wanting to be in the same space as crazy people, essentially. But the commander did not allow for this to happen, and as a result, one of the researchers took out his gun and shot him. Not only did he kill the commander, but he also killed one of the subjects. One of the other subjects took the opportunity to flee the room. So now, there was only 1 subject left. The researcher went as far as to call these test subjects monsters. After all of this chaos, he proceeded to ask the remaining test subject what they were. The prisoner responded with, "We are the inherent evil inside the human mind that is kept in check by the act of sleeping," with a smile on his face. After this, the researcher was terrified for himself and shot him dead as well. The man's last words were, "So nearly free." Now, this story is more like an urban legend, to which nobody really knew if it was a real experiment or not. Most likely, it wasn't. It's been debunked as just a simple creepypasta, and it was posted on August 10, 2010 by a user named Orange Soda. The real name of the person is still unknown till this day. But regardless of whether this story be true or false, it's still such an interesting concept, don't you think? It's incredibly horrifying. Could it be possible? If such an experiment existed, could this truly happen? Well, the record for the longest time without sleep goes to a man named Randy Gardner. He went 11 days and 24 minutes without sleep. He was a 17-year-old boy, which is crazy, but according to him, he wanted to prove that lack of sleep did not really do anything besides get you tired. Unfortunately for him, that was not actually the case. His health was heavily monitored, and honestly, he was reported to have serious cognitive and behavioral changes. For one, his mood drastically changed, his concentration was terrible, his short-term memory failed. Besides that, he also experienced paranoia and hallucinations. On his 11th day without sleep, he was asked to subtract 7 from 100 repeatedly. And once he got to 65, he stopped, thought to himself, and then said that he forgot what he was doing. Sleep deprivation alone can be horrible. You can experience mood changes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, depression, and even brain damage. But if you go without sleep at all, the first night, you may get a rush of dopamine and energy, but sooner or later, you're going to get that crash. You're going to get extremely exhausted. You're also going to experience impulsive behavior, similar to our story of the Russian sleep experiment. Your reaction times will also be very slow. On the second day without sleep, your immune system starts to fail. And on the third day without sleep, you start to experience hallucinations. That may explain why our test subjects in the Russian sleep experiment reacted the way that they did. They were going insane. Our last question: can you die without sleep? Yes, you can. Like I said in the beginning of this video, sleep in a way correlates with your health, and the lack of sleep can be very damaging to it, and no sleep at all can cause your death. Do you believe that the Russian experiment actually existed, or is it just a creepypasta? But regardless of whether you think it's real or just a simple creepypasta, it's a very interesting concept and very horrifying. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next week. For the longest time, there's been the mystery of whether mermaids exist or not. Some people actually believe they do exist, but we're not here to talk about mermaids. We're here to talk about sirens.